Welcome to Wizard Team, a Black magical podcast for Black magical stories.
Hi everyone, it's Bayana, Robyn, and Porshèa embarking on a journey through the many fantasy stories written by and about Black people. Today we are reading chapters 7 through 9 of Bloodmarked by Tracy Deonn.
But before we get into all of that, let us tell you about what happened previously on Wizard Team. So, Bree is protesting against Lark's assignment as her new King's Mage. She's never met this man. She couldn't tell you this man's face off the street. She's taken aback. We all know the real reason is that she wants Cell to be her King's Mage, but we can't get into that right now. Everyone is telling her that she's gonna have to adjust to her relationships that she's already made, when she becomes the official king, because that's gonna be is a problem. It currently is a problem related to her wanting Cell to be her King's Mage, and also, surprise, her ceremony to become king is right after the funeral. So she has no time. She needs to make those compartmentalizations immediately, like yesterday. The same yesterday in which the Regents should have introduced her to Lark, who gave Bree and Cell time to work out their issues and talk it out whenever it's clear that they both are in a fight, even though they both deny it. And because they're both in denial, they don't even resolve the issues that they have. So that's the thing as well. Bree is able to check in with Mariah and Dr. Hart about the root community safety. Whenever all those Merlins and the Mage Guard are on campus, everyone is good. No one really felt her tap out moment. So they're like, okay, good, we're chilling. But she does discover that she needs to watch out for where her being a Legendborn and a medium may overlap. There are cracks and smoke under the door, basically, and her being a medium allows for possession in a way that a white man who's powerful will take advantage of at any given moment. At the funeral, Bree is undercover as a page, and everyone around her is treating her accordingly, which is very, very racist, and all the undertones of it is really sucky. And that is immediately clear with this white lady who is basically just a glorified assistant, tells her where she needs to be in her place, and she looks unkept with her curls out. And that goes about the way you think it's going to go. When Bree looks around, she looks left, she looks right. Everywhere she looks, Cell is not in the spotlight, so she's upset about that. And then right when she notices that, the Regents arrive. So we leave off with Bree on the lookout for where her man Cell may be, and also with the impending relationship possible building she's gonna have to do with these Regents that pull up.
I will say the next at least 2 episodes, I feel like maybe 3.
Yeah.
But we're going through 3 episodes. We're going through 3 chapters an episode, so I'll give it
at least 2.
At least 2. I'm just gonna be full of rage like this. It doesn't matter how many times I read this part, it's infuriating.
I feel like this is less so than the next episode. Next episode?
Yeah, episode for sure. But it's built, it starts to build here. And then I'm just, and also I think reading these chapters, I'm anticipating it, So it's just, I feel like it's the next 3.
Yeah,
we have to go through the right too. So anyway.
Yeah. And then you have it kind of gets a little bit better, but you're still pissed. Yeah. Or it's not getting better, but there's a little bit of a get back. They get a little bit of a get back, but you're still pissed that even has to happen.
Yeah.
Okay, so anyway. Just let's get straight into the pissed offness. The Regents pull up in these SUVs as if they're a presidential motorcade because they're so important. They get out of their car one by one, and the Mage Guard starts to create a doorway opening in the barrier for them to pass through and come to the stage and sit up there on the dais or whatever. One thing about this is it's a lot of pomp and circumstance, right? Mm-hmm. But part of me is because in the last episode, Bree was talking about the barrier that the Mage Guard, they're all the Merlins are all standing in a circle kind of like evenly spaced out and making this visual barrier. Like everyone can see it. It's not just like Bree who can sense ether, and like the barrier is affecting Bree more because of her sensitivities to ether and from her rootcraft, but it's like a spectacle. And then they create this like doorway for the regents to come walk through, and it reminds me a little bit of like when you do like rehearsal dinners and things for weddings, and part of it is like, this is just how it goes, but you realize like how intentional everything is, and it makes me a little bit it makes me annoyed, because this is a funeral, and the like pomp and circumstance of the regents showing up, to me, like kind of just tracks from the victims and like the people, the kids that they lost, because no one is older than like 22.
Right. It's not really about because even they were talking about maybe it was one of the last chapters where they were like, yeah, it's a big deal, all the regents are gonna be here, like together, and so it's more about them being together than it is about like the actual grief that people are experiencing. And even, I guess, like, yeah, it's a big deal. It's because, like, 4 Legendborn died as opposed to, like, a one-off situation. But it does, yeah, it feels more like it's, a show of power for the folks who were there. But I feel like more directly, and it's like, they could pass it off as, like, show of power after this thing happened, show we're still united after, like, this big tragedy or whatever. But it definitely feels like it's more for Bree than it is for anyone else.
And we'll get like a little bit into it, like all of the moving parts, like political parts of like this war, the order as a whole, the Legendborn as like a whole, and all of this stuff, and like different factions and all of that stuff that happens. I think it kind of just happens within like societies and things like this. But Bree says, like, well, Lark is like, well, we have to go and sit down now because the regents are here. That's how, like, it starts. And Bree's like, well, they're 20 minutes late. And Lark's response is, the High Council of Regents have not convened in a full decade. I reckon they can take their time. It's like, no, because it's not their funeral.
Right.
Like, the grieving families, the grieving parents,
if this was just like a moment to like pledge your allegiance to the regents for some reason, like, then I guess, yeah. But
yeah, this is not like a regent ceremony. So we'll move on. But I'm pissed about that. It just like sets up who these people are and where their priorities lie and all of that shit. So just keep that in mind, that they will show up 20 minutes late to someone else's funeral and then make this grand entrance while the grieving parents of the dead children are on stage waiting for them. Whole thing.
I'll also point out, because I think before the regents get out, you have like Tor is kind of leading the proceedings
for the Legendborn.
And because she gets to be the head Legendborn here because Bree is in hiding and she's milking that shit. But like, even like the way that she kind of is presiding is like, it's more about her enjoying it than about her like grieving her homies.
Yeah. It's all
gross. This place is terrible.
Awful. So the regents are selected by the regent before them, but they must be of a Legendborn bloodline. So the first to arrive is Sestra, who is the regent of shadows. So she oversees the Mage Guard and like the Merlins, the vast majority of Merlins, I should say. And she was in the line of Tristan. So she's a distant relative of Tor. So that just, bad blood will out or whatever. Like, probably just as terrible as Tor. But they're also like, cousins a couple times removed or whatever. So gross.
This is probably because I just got off of talking about Game of Thrones, but it was very reminiscent of like the Maesters in Game of Thrones and how like the regents are set up to be like, once you are deciding to go to become a regent, and same if you become like a maester, you're supposed to denounce your house line. You're not denounce it, but you're supposed to like relieve yourself of like holding that allegiance. And depending on how down, like how much you actually believe in your pledge, will actually show how much like the maester actually is like that good about it or whatever. Because like some maesters tends to be the ones from Old Town themselves and all that, are the ones who are like, you know which family line they're from because they never really let go. And then other ones, like they really are about that life. And like you did not know that Aegon Targaryen is a maester at the watch until he tells people, like he tells Jon.
Oh
like,
yeah, Master Aemon. Yeah.
So it's like there's a, with like Sestra, like she's the only one we're told where she's from, but I think that's because she moves in a certain way. There's like, you probably could figure it out if you weren't told, like if we weren't told ourselves about which line she's from. We don't learn which ones the other two are from, at least in this.
I have a guess for Aldrich, but I don't know about Gabriel. I feel like I want to. Yeah, I don't know about Gabriel, but I have a guess for Aldrich for sure.
It's also worth noting too, like we talked about, you know, Lord Lame, Daddy Davis, is the head of this chapter. Like he's a
viceroy.
A viceroy, but like what are they, like he's like the chapter leader of like in the regent viceroy type of thing of the adults. Not like, you know, Nick is, or Bree actually is like the head of the chapter, but
Bree is the head of the order.
Yeah.
And
but I'm saying even before, the Scion is the head of the chapter.
Yeah.
Ostensibly, but then there is like the adult who, you know, comes in or whatever. So it's worth noting that like there is still a like political importance. And I mean, we do get this a lot with like Nick's father and like his like grandiose like whatever. After you've aged out of being a scion or and you become a vassal or I forget what the other ones are called.
I think if you're in the line and you are no longer a scion, you're a liege. But I think viceroy is like a thing you can become like that. You know what I mean? Like a title. But you're like, if you were in the like direct line, you're a liege.
Okay, so like so once you've aged out and you become a liege, there are still political positions of power within the society, and that's where these regents come in. And when there hasn't been a Camlan in like hundreds of years, for the vast majority of the time, that is actually the political like
leadership.
That's like the power brokering that they're actually going for. You know what I mean? Like no one's, we could say that like Davis, Nick, or I forget his name, whatever, Lord Lame is upset that he never was
Davis,
called.
you mean?
Dud Davis, yeah. We can surmise that he's upset that he was never called, and he was like Camlan didn't come or whatever. But even after he aged out and Nick became the scion of Arthur, allegedly, he's still doing this power brokering because like the regency and stuff is like where the actual power lies when these kids are not getting awakened. Right. And for the majority of the time, no one's getting awakened because it hasn't been this dangerous with like gates opening and things like that.
One could argue that even when the kids are especially when the kids are running around, like where is the power? Because like the regents are already set up to like maintain like power the way that they've already created it, right? So there's the kids dying off on the field works in their favor because it's like it doesn't matter. Like, sure, like go handle some demons or whatever. That's cute and fine and all, but we're over here getting money in, revenue building, trading shares, making profits, putting people into positions of power. Like, y'all can, that's cute and all, but the real power, the like day-to-day life power, is over here where the regents are involved, where the adults are playing the games.
And it's I was gonna say, and it's one of those things where it's like, you know, when they first kind of introduce the order to Bree, and it's just like, oh, so y'all are just these teenagers and you get to just like run this secret society. Like, how does that work? And really it doesn't work that way. And then also like, but it requires, like, you know, we talk about like the kind of grooming and the like conditioning that these kids go through growing up, so that by the time they get to this point, they're already like fully bought in on the idea of the order. But that includes their relationship to the regents, right? Like, they're telling them you're in charge, right? They're telling Nick, oh yeah, since you're the scion of Arthur, you're in charge. They're telling Bree that at this point, to this extent, but every step of the way you see that that's not really the case. Like, y'all don't actually have, y'all have like the magical power, right? You're on the front lines of this war, but when it comes to like who's actually pulling the strings, it's not you. Like, they keep being like, yeah, in Legendborn, they're just like, you know, when if Nick gets called, or even with Bree, or I guess with Nick, it was like they weren't even thinking he was going to get called. It was just like, now that he's taken over, like stepped back into his role, and once he has a squire, he can be like, he'll take over the leadership. And it's like, they're not giving the leadership over to this 17-year-old boy. They're definitely not giving this leadership over to this like 16-year-old black girl who just came in out of nowhere. Like, they're just not going to do that, especially not after spending, what is it, like 300 years putting, like, because I don't know that like the regents necessarily had like, I could see the like structure of the order kind of evolving and growing as like, you know, with the world, right? So I doubt that like before the last Camlan it was structured in this way. But definitely by this point, they've spent 300 years getting to this point. They're not about to just throw it away for some, really anybody, but especially not
an outsider.
And we talked about this,
a black outsider.
Yeah. Like, and we talked about this in like when we were reading Legendborn too. Like, a lot of the reason why Vaughn was so gung-ho about becoming Nick's squire is not so that he can get the power of Arthur and fight these demons. It's because if you squire someone like Nick, it sets you up. Like, Evan Cooper's dad, we're about to find out, is a congressman, right? And like Nick says, like, there are congressmen and Supreme Court justices, and like it like opens up these gates of power, not just in the order, but beyond and into worldwide, like, you know, Fortune 500 CEO companies and stuff like that. And so the reason why I'm like bringing this up again is because we're about to see that. So like Fesher, right, but she runs all of the Merlins. That's like the military arm, right? And now
and like spy, like intelligence
and spies, and yeah. So and then Regent Gabriel comes after her. He is the Regent of Light. He oversees all of the society's operations and says that he, or the Regent of Light, not this particular Regent Gabriel, but like that position helped move the Legendborn from a medieval society into a modern power conglomerate. And so they manage the recruiting of all the vassals, which is like what, you know, Alice is becoming, these like squires, lieges after they've aged out, right? So this whole, like, the people that make the Legendborn society what it is, basically. And then they're also in charge of maintaining the code of secrecy. So he has his own kind of division of Merlins who specialize in mesmer, and that is probably who we saw at the hospital when Bree's mother died. Not
no, because that was that was Sel's mom.
No, I'm saying not her. The police. The it was a guy in like in the police uniform that Bree noticed was like a little bit different. Not Sel's mom, but like the one.
No,
that,
I think that was just I don't think that was the same. I don't think that was.
Is that not a real person?
No, I think that was his mom. Just like it was kind of like a red herring type situation. It was his mom making it seem like it was, you know what I mean? Like it was a cop instead.
Oh, okay.
That was part of her mesmer.
Okay. I thought there were like two Merlins nearby. Okay, that makes sense. But yeah, but like, you know, even like in Bree's flashbacks of her like line and stuff where she's like seeing people that might be Merlins and or Morgaines. Like those would be the Merlins from like who specialize in mesmer, are within the Regent of Light's control or whatever power structure. And then you have Lord Regent Aldrich, who is the leader of the High Council of Regents. He would be like, if we're doing Thestra's the military arm and Gabriel as like the political arm, he's like the president and the CEO. And so he ostensibly commands both of those arms. And so I'm
convinced he's a Davis.
Ooh, I could see it.
I'm just like, they don't say it, or it's not said.
Yeah, the way that he gave a speech, he gives
like
his immediate
that speech. That's why I said immediately.
I'm like the Davis line, like it's really
immediately. I'm like, I could see it. I wouldn't be shocked. So he is the keeper of the Legendborn records, order history, and commander of the table when it is not gathered. So he's in charge on paper. Let's just say this. How it was explained to Bree, and if everything worked in the way that it was designed, he's in charge until Bree completes the rite and takes the throne, and then they would then owe themselves to Bree. On paper. We're about to see very clearly and quickly that's not what's actually going to go down, but that's how it was designed.
Before we move on from this component of like the Regents walking in, I just want to take a moment because Bree projects, and it's hilarious to me that Bree projects in this way. When Sestra pops out and she looks around the space, she's like, "Oh, is Sestra looking around for her mage? Like, is she looking out for her, like for her Merlin? Because like when Bree, again, we left our last episode, she was looking around for her quote unquote Merlin. So when she sees Sestra look around, she's like, oh, she must be looking for her Merlin as well. And then she like leans into like Lark, and he's like, oh yeah, Erebus isn't here or whatever, he's doing something else. And I just think it's so funny that when Bree sees someone who is aligned with Merlin, she's like, oh no, that they must also be looking for their Merlin. And it's like, it's like, not, where does the girl? That's you. Like, you're looking for Cell.
It's not because Bree feels a certain type of way about Cell that she is on high alert. It's because of the fact that he's a Merlin. Okay? And everyone would react the same way if in proximity to a Merlin. Bree is not reacting this way because it's Cell.
What do you mean she's not reacting this way because of Cell?
She's not. Okay. She's not. She doesn't feel any type of way about Cell.
Yeah, it's denial. Like, delusional. So she feels the same way about Lark as she feels about, like, Max. She feels the same way about every single one.
And so would anyone else in that position. Don't look too closely. What are you talking about? Mind your business. So Aldrich gets started, and there's a reason why why Bayana thinks that he might be of the Davis line, because look, it's grandiose, it's verbose,
Dead got it honest,
it's unnecessary.
Yeah.
But as she's watching the funeral start and listening to this long-windedness, Bree starts to cry, and then her vision starts to blur, and she starts to see Merlin in the place of Aldrich doing the funeral rites. And we kind of see that Arthur is like possessing her, and she's having a flashback of an ancient funeral with Merlin doing the rites, and with all of the original knights surrounding her / him being Arthur. And then Bree starts to chant in Old Welsh, and Lark is like, what the fuck? I know you spoke Old Welsh, which was, to me, is like hilarious in two ways, because what the fuck? I didn't know you spoke Old Welsh. But also, like, she could just know the chant. Like, she's been studying. And then I'm also assuming too that like it's a pronunciation. She's probably pronouncing it very well, because you've heard me read the words of Old Welsh, and I know it's not supposed to sound like that.
Yeah. Also, so like I don't want to like bench him yet because it's still kind of early, but like Arthur's literally colonizing Bree's grief right here.
Yes.
Oh,
Like,
can I tell you?
she's feeling like sad and like upset, both about like her, these people who died, right? And like a couple of them she saw die in front of her face. She's having like conflicted emotions thinking about her mom's funeral, all these things happening. And then Arthur's like, hey, what about me and my sadness?
I too have felt grief. I'm
going to show you right now. Like, no, get out of my head, bro.
Enter Rachel Dolezal meme. I too.
My note was that Arthur needs to quit playing games with Bree's heart because pun intended for Backstreet Boys song. Because how dare you, sir? Because she describes it as the wound from her scar from her mother being reopened. So it's like he's inside her brain. He knows what to pull on her grief to make him be able to have her visualize his grief in the same way that she feels about her deeper grief. She don't know them people. They're ancient years old. Why would she cry about them? She wouldn't.
And like when she started to like when that wound, like you were saying, was reopening, it's because this moment took her back to how she was feeling when she lost her mom. Not like she wasn't even really thinking about the order and like what the other pages or the like what her friends are feeling. She's literally thinking about her grief from her mother, which predates her relationship with the Order.
And it's still not that long ago.
No, not at all. So yeah, Merlin sucks too, but Arthur
can
is
kick rocks. The rock that Excalibur was lodged in, ideal.
So as like Lark is like, what the fuck? I know you spoke well. She kind of snaps out of it, and then she's like, was I possessed? Am I possessed? I still kind of feel him, but he kind of fades a little bit more into the background, but still close to the surface of her subconscious or whatever. So she starts to like start paying attention again to the actual funeral that's happening in front of her, and hears Aldridge offer family support from Regent Gabriel's Merlins who can help them forget if they desire it. And she likens this to Vaughn. You remember that jerk?
He doesn't remember anything. We don't. If he wants to be unremembered, we can make that happen. We cannot remember him.
He decided after he was passed over in favor of Bree to be Nick Scion, and then did one good thing by helping
fighting
by showing up.
Minute.
Yeah, well, he showed up. He was like, something's going on. I don't know if y'all know this, but
it's a whole lot of demons.
Something sketchy coming on. There's a whole lot of demons. And then he got himself into a predicament because he was in the cavern during the Olog. I'm not gonna. During that big battle at the end of Legendborn. And afterwards he said, you know what? Never mind. So he went to the Merlins, asked for them to like help him forget, and they ain't never seen him again. He's gone. He
and probably it's so interesting. Schools. Like Bree is definitely Bree was like, I don't know exactly what about it made him like decide. It could be anything, right? Like it could be, I saw these people die. I just fought a bunch of demons. I was highly traumatized. Could also be, turns out Bree is Arthur and I can't take that. Like it could really coming from him, knowing how horrible he was. It's like
also like it could have also been like I allowed my ambition to let me be used as a pawn in Dud Davis's games. You know what I mean? Like he was.
My main thing, I wonder.
Who knows?
Well, I think it is like he wanted to be a Order of Arthur for the like prestige of it, but he didn't ever expect to get awakened.
And he wasn't trying to fight in a war. He was trying to like.
He was trying to have the
get on a Fortune 500 siege,
but not the actual action.
Right.
Yeah. I think because of how he moves and how we met his mother, and from the Order of Rose and Legendborn, I'm like, there's no way that they had like let their son get mesmered without them being like, you know, like this was a strategic maneuver by the family. Like they were like, he can, like, we're not going to deal with this. Like,
well,
he can
I mean, we don't
pull
even know,
himself
because
out of
like
this.
I'm the kind of person where even if my mom was like, think about all that you'll give up, blah blah blah, bitch,
I don't know if Vaughn is that
I don't
person.
want it. But it's also like with Merlin's, we also don't know the extent of what he forgot.
Right.
Right? Like, if he could have just forgotten that event and that night.
And that he was there.
And he could still be a vassal and still be a part of the order. Or he could have just been like, you know what?
I don't even want to
know. I don't want to know
not.
nothing.
Absolutely not.
Yeah. And then I forget, Schaefer, right? The Schaefer line ends here because he's like, you know what? The future children, we out.
Yeah.
So then Evan Cooper's, so then she's like, as she's saying, like, I don't know what made him decide to do that, but we haven't seen him again. Arthur in her head is like, they are weak. And it's like, bitch, shut up. Stop interrupting my thoughts with your thoughts.
I mean,
I will say that, like, and I guess maybe it's Evan's mom who then brings it up, because it's like, you know, I don't necessarily ascribe a particular value. Maybe Vaughn is weak in terms of like his, like him deciding to like erase memories. Like, yeah, for sure. But in terms of the parents, I just think it's kind of foul to offer that, honestly.
Yeah,
because I'm like, these are your children. Like, these aren't just like, and you know, maybe that's something that a family would want, but I just feel like that's a weird thing to be like, yeah, you can forget your child. Is it existed? Because it can't be you could just forget that they died. Like,
no, well, I think that's the thing, is that Merlins are able to, because we saw with Sel's mom, and then it's like Nick's they're able to like add in or like change
it completely, so you don't even know that person existed, and that's so like
well, it's not even that you don't know that person existed, but there's a way in which they could forget how their child died, but know that their child died, right? I
guess it's not clear.
A memory of them getting like dying in a car accident or something like that, right? So I think one of the things that is really important, though, and we'll get into it even more in the next chapter, but he offers the parents, and like, is it just the parents that he offers?
I think he says the families, but
the families, the relief of forgetting, and
but yeah, I'm saying like the relief of forgetting to me sounds like forgetting the child completely, like forgetting that, like, how your kid died versus that your kid died. You know what I mean? Like, the grief is still there.
And I mean, I took it as just because of like logistics. You can't really forget that your child died. I mean,
you can forget they existed. That's what happened to Nick's mom.
Yeah, you could forget they had a child. You had a child, but I think that there are like different.
It's just,
I think it would be up to the families what level of forgetting that they wanted, I guess.
For sure. Maybe that's what it is. I don't know. It just definitely felt like a weird thing to like offer in that moment as part of the ceremony, I guess.
Yeah. So then Evan's mom interrupts and is like, how dare you? Her voice crackling with anger and grief. And she says, how dare you suggest that we forget our children? Is that what you'd prefer? And then it's also very strange because they're in the middle of grieving, and her husband is like, Regent Aldridge, I apologize for my wife. We mean no disrespect. And Bree is like, I can see on his face, though, that he doesn't disagree with his wife. He just is apologizing for like the outburst and like the break in decorum.
But that's,
and it's like so weird to me.
That's on the Regents. Like, and I want to say this about overall, and we're going to get there about like who we're going to bitch. But I want to say overall, like, this is on the Regents because it's like at any time they could have taken the parents aside prior to the funeral, offered them these services, asked them how they would want to proceed with like the ceremony. They could have, at any point, they could have done that.
I mean, even the offering of this should, I think it's weird that the offering of it was public anyway.
Yeah. Right.
So, and the part of his speech.
Exactly. And at any time they could have like, you know, like been a better thoughtful about this. The main problem that I've had with this whole, like this episode we're going to talk through about the Regents and how they show up. And like Bree is like, I know Bree is just living through this and just like taking things as they are. But whenever like this is like your second read around or whatever, it's like the clues that I wish Bree would pick up on for like how power is going to work, how the Regents are going to work. Like this is how they treat a powerful congressman and his wife when it comes to how the Regents want to keep their theater of like order and power running. And from the way that Sestra pointedly does not look in her direction when she pops out of the freaking car, to the way that they treat this sitting congressman, to the way that Bree is just like, you know, like she knows she's Arthur. How they're trying to like cover up the whole situation, and they haven't even given Bree a debrief prior to all this about the right, about anything. Like Bree should be a little concerned about how is the changeover of power actually going to happen if she's not being briefed on anything.
But
and they're like, they're not even briefing the congressman and his wife about the circumstances of their son's death. And I'm like, this is just like, for me, like whenever we're talking about like the order and pomp and circumstance of it all, like it really gives me that like overall, in order for the system to work, the theater of power has to work. And what we're seeing in this episode, of because like all the chapters we're going to read in this episode, is the way that the machine is built and the way that they're able to maintain the narratives that they decide to put in place through the machine that they've built.
Yeah, and I want to point out, it's like hard, right? Because I don't want to like, I mean, spoiler heavy or whatever, but we are about to like immediately get into this in like, I think the next chapter or the chapter after, in chapter 9. We're gonna get into it in this episode, basically. But I do want to point out that like the reason why what I just said, like it's kind of callous that they didn't offer these. They offered this in the middle of a service in front of all of these people and didn't offer this like to the side, off to the side in private, right? Like you would do for any, like, unfortunately we live in a world where like, you know, if you're a victim of a mass shooting or any kind of thing, you will like, and the like public statement might be like, we have people, or there will be support services made available to those affected, right? And that's it, support services. Like if it was really about like supporting the families, like that's all he would have said. Like Regent Gabriel will be reaching out with support services, because that is the point of that statement publicly, is to say we are looking out for the families behind the scenes. We would, if any of this happened, if something like this happened to you or your family, we would give you support services, right? So you do want to say that in public for more than just the families to know that it is something that you've thought through, right? And that's a PR thing that like happens in the real world too, but it serves the purpose of letting the people affected know that there are services, and letting the people who are not affected but have that feeling of like they might be affected in the future, right? It hits close to home, even if it doesn't impact them immediately, that like those things exist, right? The reason why he laid out what those services were and that they were is to provoke a reaction and to like have that grief manifest in an outburst so that he can get to the next part of this, because this is all a part of their plan, right? This is not so Evan Cooper's mom is like, we have no idea when we don't have our son's body. We have no idea when he died, how he died. We don't know when we spoke to him on his birthday last year if we were speaking to him or if we were speaking to this demon. And we think it was him, but we have no idea. And then this is what Congressman John, which I also think it's also important to know that, like, yeah, Evan's father is a congressman and he's powerful, but I think it's even Regent Aldrich calling him congressman, yeah, it's part of like, you always put a handle on their name, it's their title or whatever, but it's also a subliminal, we have power over the powerful. If he was not a part of the order, would he even be a congressman? You know what I mean? Like, it like reinforces like you're a part of the society because of what the society can give to you, but like we can give it and we can take it.
Yeah.
So Evan's dad says, we knew it would be dangerous for our son to be a squire, but this demon didn't just take our son from us, it pretended to be him. And this goes along with the like, they know it would be dangerous in this very intellectual, this could happen, but how likely is it really to happen type of thing, especially like, I forget, Evan squired Fitz, right?
Yeah.
And
so they knew they would be. He knew he would be awakened
on a first.
Yeah, so they're like
responder, basically. Like he's like in the front lines.
They're like down there kind of with William. Like William knows he's gonna be awakened, even if there is no Camland, just in the like natural order of like some demons are gonna get through. Whatever, like those lower lines, which sounds terrible, but those lower lines are always awakened, right? And so they knew that he would be awakened, he would be up for like abatement. They understood like those kinds of risks, but again, it's like the patrols and the, you know, like a demon fox gets through or whatever they saw at like in the start of Legendborn with the little like pixie imp things, right? That is the kind of danger that they understood this to be. And to say that like our son was not just killed, but was like replaced, and we don't know how long we opened our home and hearts to a demon. So they're like, when the last time we spoke to, when was the last time we spoke to the real Evan and not this Roz creature? How long did we welcome this demon into our home? And then he says, we're not the only Legendborn parents grieving today. I know I speak for the other parents, and also keep in mind too that this guy is a congressman, so he's probably a very good orator.
Right.
Probably. You know, not all
That's not
politicians.
true for every congressman. He's Southern too. Some Southern ones be a little,
you know, but communication in general,
theoretically,
is the strength, in theory, is the strength of most politicians, right? So he's like, we deserve answers. Where were this chapter's leaders? We deserve answers about the scions, like, how did this happen under his watch? Where is Nick Davis, right? And that sets off the next part of Aldridge's performance.
Yes. I do want to say, though, before we get into the performance, calling for this 17-year-old kid who, like...
Right.
Like, just be serious for a second. Right. You know, like, maybe call for his dad, like, because he's actually the, like, viceroy of the Southern chapter, not this kid who left the order for a minute, just got back. He don't know. Like, he's in just as much danger as your son was.
With just as much background knowledge and experience,
right? But it's just like, why are you calling for this kid? Like, I get it, because like I do get it in the sense of like, this is their like whole thing, right? Like, it's not even supposed to be like, a part of him is also like Nick isn't there at the funeral, so there's also just like the optics of that. But also like, where's Nick Davis? You're looking to the child for answers. Interesting.
When I was posing the thing about like, why did, like, because that was one of my questions like coming in, so I was reading the chapters, was like, why does Bree feel like she's going to be getting like this much power when she takes on, like, you know, owns the fact that she's the Scion of Arthur? And then you see these grown adults being like, the Scion of Arthur is the one who has the power. So it makes me question how deeply the Regents have integrated the other adults into the reckoning of like the Regents actually hold the power versus like the Legendborn. Because like, what is the what is the actual understanding that the lieges have versus the people who are in cahoots with the Regents? Like, what is that?
I think to me it's both in the sense that, like, obviously, like, you see the way that they're interacting, especially the congressman, like, the way that he's kind of, like,
deferent,
yeah,
like
like,
deferring,
to
and yeah.
the regents, and he's very much like, he knows that they're the ones who give him power, right? But I think that in the sense of, like, the again, like, front lines battle situation, I don't think that they're holding the regents accountable in that way, because it's not like they were there. And it's not, I'm not saying this is true. I'm thinking in terms of what they might, how they might, like, rationalize it, I guess, is the sense of, like, the regents like, are in charge of the whole organization, but in terms of, like, it's a weird thing to kind of juggle. I feel like what they're doing is the sense of, like, the and I think at some point maybe Will in chapter 9 kind of talks about, like, the traditionalists versus the, like, more modern, like,
Modernist.
factions of the
Mhm.
order, but I think it's, like, folks who are kind of bought in on the traditionalist standpoint but still benefit from the more modern, like, way that the order is kind of built or structured. So I think it's kind of both. I think calling for Nick is more of a symbolic thing than it is a, like, like,
They're looking for accountability, and I'm like, I don't understand. Like you're
yeah,
saying, I
but
don't
I
see how
think
you're
they're
gonna get
looking for
accountability from a
accountability
17-year-old boy.
in the war, which for some reason is fought by children. And yeah, I don't know. I think it feels like an optics thing to me. But I do think that they know, like, the regents are the ones who, oh, this is gonna sound horrible, sorry, like, butter their bread. Like, they're the ones who get them in the places that they need to be, but then, like, when it comes to the battle against the demons, it's a different, you know what I mean? It's like a different or a different, like, responsibility thing. I don't agree, but I feel like that's maybe what the rationalization is. This whole thing is weird. I don't like
I'm
none
like
of the
hierarchy. I'm like, if I like the thing about accountability under a hierarchy is like you should have supposed to know who exactly is supposed to be accountable for what under the hierarchy. But the way that the regents play the game, I'm like, that's like if you're part of the game, then that's not true. Like this is
Mhm.
not true. So why call for it?
But he to me seems like one of the traditionalists because he let his son be a squire.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? On a lower, like, knowing his son was going to be awakened, like, so I think it's, yeah.
I think it's two things. So I think, like, even in the traditionalist, like, we'll get more into that, like, those factions, I guess. I do think that as a traditionalist, it would be even more shocking that Nick isn't here, because the thought
Yeah.
is, yes, the regents run things, but when these kids are awakened and when it gets to the level of where, at least where they think they're at now, where they're just only waiting for the larger order of the people not in the know think that they're just waiting for Lancelot and Arthur to wake up now, that Nick should have taken a level of control and ownership over the entire organization, because they're well on their way to Camlin. Because,
Yeah. But
again,
it's very much a, like,
on paper, that's how it's supposed to work.
yeah.
In reality,
It feels like it's part of the performance.
yes, for sure. So to get back to the next part of Aldrich's performance, because the congressman is like, where was Nick Davis?
Where was Nick Davis when the Westfold fell?
I'm just in my head, it's the Lauryn Hill, like, where were you when I needed you? Like, X Factor
Exactly.
of it all. Like, where are you?
And he, like, not only demands to know where Nick is, but he's like, where's Nick? Where's Sel? Where's Nick's father? Like, where are the people that are in charge of this chapter? Because this chapter is the chapter in which my son lost his life and was also, I think, again, they don't know how long Evan had been
that is disturbing
replaced by this. by this demon, which is very disturbing, but also it's like, isn't that the whole point of having the King's Mage here?
It's one of those things where I like do feel like I don't actually care about the Coopers, but the circumstances of their son's death is actually foul. So like I do feel like I do empathize with them.
They're very justified in everything that they do.
I'm like, you should definitely have answers. Like that's actually out of pocket.
When he says like, how long have we let this demon into our home? And you think about like when you're in college, right? And you call your parents or your parents call you just to check in. Like, yeah, you may not have gone home every weekend or whatever, but you're like, how's your day? How are your classes? You know what I mean? Like that shit happened very frequently, especially if you're like away from home. And so to think that like every time they're having those conversations in the cadence that you do when your child is growing up to become a man, but is at a like on campus at a college, that for who knows how long I was asking a demon how his classes were going and tell me about, oh my God. Bree's friend was dating a demon.
Possibly having sex
with a demon. Oh my God.
Maybe he was demon time for real. Like maybe she was enjoying it.
Please let the birth control.
Girl.
Please let them have
the plan be plentiful. Be plentiful.
Cause she about to have herself a cell, baby. Like a Merlin. Not a Merlin either, cause like
a Dorsal or whatever, possibly.
Well, no, it would be a Cambion. It would be a half demon, half human, because she's, but like, you know, not one that was like bred to fight evil. It would be like, what's his name that we're about to meet? Varys. I forgot his name. Anyway, y'all know we're about to meet him. He's great. I'll remember. So they're, you know, demanding where is Nick and Cell and Nick's dad. And so then part 2 of the Aldridge performance happens where he tells the crowd that the story of Nick and Nick's father going off to train is not quite the truth. Bree is like, oh no, are they about to like
be honest?
Be honest, right? Are they about to out me? Are they about to, you know what I mean? Like, what exactly are they? How far are we going with this? But they are being sequestered in a safe and undisclosed location because of what happened. That caused the deaths of these kids, right?
Which is just a foreshadowing about what they're going to do to Bree instead.
Woo! Told her the plan, but she wasn't really paying attention.
She wasn't taking notes.
She wasn't taking notes. Just told her the plan. They are being sequestered in a safe and undisclosed location, and that Cell, as the King's Mage, was brought in for questioning because they wanted to know how this was allowed to happen, and the King's Mage's job is to know. And to spot these
they just keep blaming shit on kids. You keep putting these like unfair expectations on these kids. Give him like, why were there not 3 other Merlins, first of all?
Anyway. Why was Cell the only Merlin on campus whenever they understood that there was all these gates opening? At what point do you notice
had like
that's
2
a suspicious amount of gates, and this
had
one
like
guy,
what two scions awaken in the same fucking night?
Come on,
bro. Stinson, no reinforcements. Stinson, not one reinforcement.
And it's like, and we like Bayana mentioned, I think last episode, that this is all like Erebus is like doing, but like at the same time, bro, when we're talking about accountability, where do the other regions fall into this? Because they're not part of Erebus's plan. He didn't like slot them in. He's not planning with them. But you don't find it suspicious? You don't feel a little bit like, Erebus, my bro, I see you got other things going on. Don't even worry about it. I'm just gonna send one other person over there real quick. Don't even put it on your head. Don't even worry your head about it. I got you. I'm gonna send someone else over there to hang out the King's Mage because it seems like he's a little overwhelmed.
I muted myself because the doggies were going. It's none of it is correct. Like all of it is wild. So
it just seems real convenient that they can blame the kids now, but not try to prepare to help the kids when the kids needed help.
Mm-hmm.
And knowing that, like, the kids
they're not all right.
Reporting back.
They weren't all right.
The kids are not all right.
Right? But they're also, like, they are reporting back at every, like, occurrence, right?
Mm-hmm.
The Regents are aware. They may not be on campus, which is a problem, but they're aware of what's going on and what's going down. So, what happened? So then Aldrich announces that Fell, they don't say that he is a traitor, but they believe that he is a traitor and was working with Roz for this whole thing to happen. And that is where
they just said straight from they said, Lord Davis was
onto something,
lying, but why not use this? He tried to he succeeded once. We can help him succeed the second time in pinning this.
It was more like he was like, they were like, you know what? Why bother crafting a brand new story from scratch when we can just take the playbook and adjust it the way that we need it to work? I feel like it's a writing prompt, like a narrative writing prompt, rather than like a whole, like, just take what we already got and then use that. Fabulous. Here on Wizard Team, it's no surprise that we love books. We also love supporting the independent bookstores.
With our bookshop affiliate link, you can not only get all the books on your TBR, but you can support indie bookstores and B&C at the same time.
And if you're not sure what you want, that ain't no problem. Check out our The Plot Thickens list full of recommendations from none other than Porshèa herself.
Head to www.bookshop.org/shop/BlackNerdsCreate to treat your shelves.
Treat your shelves!
Oh, that's nice. That's clever.
Oh my goodness.
That's clever.
Oh, it's such a clutch off-season pickup, Dave.
I was worried we'd bring back the same team.
I meant those blackout motorized shades.
Blinds.com made it crazy affordable to replace our old blinds.
Hard to install?
No, it's easy. I installed these and then got some for my mom. She talked to a design consultant for free and scheduled a professional measure and install.
Hall of Fame son.
They're the #1 online retailer of custom window coverings in the world.
Blinds.com is the GOAT.
Shop Blinds.com right now and get up to 45% off select styles, plus a professional measure. Rules and restrictions may apply.
So of course, Bree immediately jumps to her feet.
Because it's like Cell.
She's not supposed to be
she's like,
undercover, under
you?
the radar. She hops to her feet. But I have been calling her Kestra, but I really don't know how to pronounce this woman's name. But she keeps talking. And kind of explains.
I was saying Thestra.
I know both interchangeably.
I wonder if there's a
pronunciation guide.
It's not that.
It's not a name that I'm used to seeing down south. So for it to be a southern, like, I'm trying to think of how a southerner would say it. And I feel like, like Ursher, and I'm like, Sestra. Like, I feel like that's how they would say it. But like, I don't know.
Oh, maybe it is Sestra. From this random thing I found on the internet. But I guess it's saying it's Italian. The more you know. Anyway, so she explains that Erebus and the Mage Guard took Cell in for questioning, but then he escaped. Obviously, as he should. He was like, "Nah, this is some BS." But okay, so also the Legendborn are also shocked. So like everybody else sitting up top, Tor on to Pete and everybody in between, is surprised by this too. So then they announced that Cell has been stripped of his titles and labeled a fugitive. Bree in this moment shouts no, because again,
I don't want to make
can't.
this illusion, but like it feels very similar to whenever that racist congressperson was on the floor in was it the full Congress meeting, and he was like, "You lied."
It was the State of the Union.
State of the
It was the State
Yeah.
And he
of
was
the
like,
Union.
"You lied."
Yes.
That's what
You
Bree's
lied.
doing right now.
Yeah, it's really not good. So then Aldrich steps in at this point because Lark is trying to get Bree to shut up and sit down. But Aldrich kind of steps forward and he's trying to act all like benevolent. Kind of just basically doing to her what he did to the parents too. Like, no, it's fine. Like, go on. He's like,
Let the
Paige
child speak her
Douglas,
mind.
why don't you let Paige? And then he drifts off, pretending like he doesn't know who Bree is, which is just like so just disingenuous. Because even if it's just the performance of it, and it's like even if you didn't know, like I get you're trying to pretend like you don't have like any extra stuff, but like she's the only black Paige sitting here. She also like even later like when he gets reminded in quotes of like who she is, he got the whole rundown that she's the squire to me. So I was like, what are you even doing? Like, you know Paige Douglas, but you don't know Paige Matthews? Okay.
Insulting her on purpose.
Yeah, like he's
like
trying. So
again,
him doing this makes Bree angry. So and it's also again like she still has Arthur in here just colonizing
playing
her
games
feelings.
with her heart.
So the world narrows. So this is what Bree is saying. The world narrows and narrows to this pretense that he doesn't know exactly who I am. Enough of this ruse, and that's Arthur. So now she felt his grief. Now she feels his anger. So she's like struggling with Arthur to get him to shut up. Cause she's feeling these emotions. She did jump up to say no or whatever, but like that was her own disbelief and like anger, and now she has to contend with Arthur's. So now she can't speak because she's trying to she's like, I don't know if I say something if it's gonna come out in his voice because he's
I honestly would like to see it. I mean, I know the problem is that like for her safety, she needs not to reveal that Arthur is within her.
Right.
However, I would like to see how startled every regent would be if Arthur started talking straight to them, straight from her body. Like, I feel like they would be like, sir.
Like, what's going on here?
What is up with your voice?
She's like, I'm good. I just have a little frog in my throat.
No, I feel like if they knew, because they know it's Arthur, so they'd be like, do we need to listen? Like, is he going to do something if we don't listen to him when he talks through her?
I don't think they would do that. I think their whole thing is like that would just show that she doesn't have control.
But I feel like Arthur, but they can't deny the power of Arthur. Like, if he can take her over while she's sitting there, what is he gonna do? What can they control? If she can control him, what is he gonna do?
I think we've already seen how they react to that though, so I don't think that it
to Arthur
would change anything. Or not that we've seen it yet, but we will see. So William steps in and is like, this is Paige Matthews, and then Aldrich does the like, oh yeah, how could I forget? Like, yeah, whatever. So Lark is trying to like get her out. Is like, look, we should just go. But Bree kind of plants her feet and she's like, I don't want to move, so I'm not gonna move. And she like shouts that Cell didn't betray anyone. Which it's like one of those things where like none of this is helping her, but also kind of like what we were talking about last episode, like does it matter? Because they have their plan on what they're like planning to do to her regardless. So it's not one of those things where like, oh, she shouldn't be doing this, because she probably
She's not
shouldn't,
helping her
just because like
case.
you're not helping your case, but like there's no case to be helped you know what I mean? Like they already kind of made up their mind. It's more just like she should just learn to be a little more subtle. In general, I think it's a life skill that she could learn, but I don't think that it matters in this particular moment. Like, it's not actually going to change anything.
Yeah.
I think it also, again, this is where I'm talking about like this like performance and stuff. I think she like plays into their hands as well. And like it makes me mad mostly because it's like, and I think she says this like later on, I can't remember because it all runs together, but like, I don't really give a fuck what they think or how they feel about Bree, how Bree reacts to things, how Bree's emotions. It gives me a lot of like, even with like what Teresa or whatever, just like policing the Black person's existence, right? She, for what everyone else knows, she's a page, but she was Nick's page, right? And as like Nick's page, selected scion, even though she doesn't, apparently she never got to finish her oath, even though everyone else did, whatever. She would have been close to Nick and Sel, the King's Mage. She would have, since like more than likely, been in the battle, right? So like she should, like everyone else in that chapter, you know, they all remark on like, Will's eyes get really wide. Tor looks like, oh, I mean, a little bit less because she's probably in on it too. She sucks. But like, you know, like every other people in the chapter are also having a reaction. They're not having an outburst,
right?
Quote unquote.
But they're surprised.
Like, they're surprised by this news. So part of me is like, I don't appreciate like having them or having to put any responsibility or weight behind like what their reaction to her reactions are. But it does allow them to paint her as unstable and, you know, whatever, you know, how whatever white people want to believe about the angry Black girl, it's what they're allowed to do.
Yeah, my point about it not helping her case is even if all of the order is racist, she needs to have allies where she can, and it doesn't help her case for allyship if she is not like, if in every public place where she is first introduced to people, she's shown as, or it seems like she is not able to control herself. Like having a, like that's the name of the game here, is control, and she is not making a good good case for herself. Come help me out to keep me from these people taking over, because she can't show that like I can be worth investing in, because look at how well I can take care of things on my own.
And she's not thinking of it in that way. Like the way it's one of those things where it's so like, again, I understand why she doesn't like know how to play this game. Because like how could she? It's not something that she grew up in, and it's also like she is learning from the people who, again, have the most like physical power, most showy and like obvious power. And so the way that they're taught the order works is in a very specific way that gets them to fight. So they're telling her, oh, you're good, you know, you just got to go through the right, then you'll be king, then you roll everything, we'll do Camland, boom, we're good. Like they're thinking of it in such a narrow way that it's also making her think of it in that way. And she's not so much thinking of like, these are like much larger powers happening here. And these are people that I have to like impress to an extent. And again, I don't love that in the sense that like, obviously this is a racist and like organization, like, you know, they're clearly not good people, but in order to get the things that you want, you've decided you want to like be in this organization for your own reasons. And she's just like she doesn't fully understand yet, like what this she's seeing the like signs of it, but in her mind still, it's like, I'm the king, so none of this really matters or really applies to me. And to her, or in her head, and in the way people are telling her being the king supersedes the other like struggles that she's gonna, you know what I mean? Like the other, her being Black, like in her case, she's like, that doesn't matter because I'm the king. But in fact, that actually matters the most. And she's not thinking of it in that way. Like she's thinking of like the kind of like one-to-one racist moment she's been having, like with Teresa, or even with like the Order of the Rose or whatever in the last book. Like she's thinking of those like one-to-one situations, even Lord Davis to an extent, but like not to what that actually means institutionally for her. And it's like it's hard to read and like to see it happening, especially knowing what's coming. Is just like, it's right there. You're like watching her walk into it. But also, again, I don't know that there's anything she could do with this in this.
Would that there were a Dr. Hartwood within the order to help put Bree through her paces, like so she can have her like
that, and like
his name is Will. His name is Will.
No,
unfortunately,
Will.
It happens.
It's not someone older who's like.
But I'm talking. Yeah, I'm not even talking about Will.
That can help her get her allies and her needs met.
That's true.
Yeah, because even Will, it's still in his head. It's still, you become the king, and then
he's embedded in the action plan.
Yeah, when Will comes in, when he does come in the next chapter, like it's less on the like, you need to watch out for yourself on this other level. He's still like, yeah, you need to learn how to be king. That's like his.
He's like he's on. I know how I was trained. I know how the other Scions were trained. I can tell you that we need to get you on the same Scion training. But he's not on.
But it's not the like
the machinations.
And I think too, like there's just a lot of different things that we start learning as we go through this book. And like, you know, when we meet the lieges and when we start to see just like more of how the order actually works when you're not like deep in fighting demons, basically. Tor kind of like hops in and is like, thank you for this information. Of course, it's a big shock, but like we appreciate you being forthright with us, and we do kissing ass, you know, all that. And Bree is still partially in Arthur's memory, so she kind of gets like taken back in to Arthur's memories, and Lark is kind of like the Tor is able to move the attention away from Bree, and so then Lark is able to kind of like drag Bree away. At one point, Bree is like, they're lying, and Lark is like, whoop, that's enough of that. Covers her mouth and starts to like pull her physically away. Then she kind of realizes that he knew what was happening to Sel and didn't say anything. She's kind of like, you know, let me go. There's kind of a struggle. She pulls away from him, and because she's like using Arthur's strength, she breaks his hand accidentally. And she immediately starts to apologize, but she's also still angry at him. So, yeah, she spins away trying to leave the barrier, but we get to Zhao, certified hater. This man is I swear to God, Tracy was like, you know what? Tracy said, you know what? We about to put,
because he is. I hate the way that you like. He's saying that too.
No, I know, but I'm saying you can't say the word certified anymore because I almost called him a certified pedophile, and that is not what he is. But he is.
He's just a hater. He's a hater.
I think he is Kendrick. He is like, I hate the way that you walk. I hate the way that you talk.
No, but he's not that kind of hater. He's like Zhao in Avatar. He has a chip on his shoulder.
Yeah.
And he's like, so Bree goes up to the barrier and is like, let me through. Zhao looks at her and goes, I don't take orders from a page. And it's just like, what's your deal? Like, what's the issue here? You know that I'm not the page. You know that I'm not a page. And on top of that, I just said let me through. Like, what's the issue? Like, what's the problem? So Lark comes up and is like, let us through, Max. Matthews here needs to be back up at the compound in her room. And then Max sizes Lark up and sniffs. I don't take orders from you either, Douglas. You think you outrank us just because you're Erebus's special pet? So what, you wanted to be her King's Mage? You're an asshole. She
That's
wouldn't
what it sounds like.
It don't seem
Like,
like
what's
it. It don't seem that way.
It's like, sir, please.
It's like he doesn't want to be Bree's King's Mage, but he wants to be a King's Mage.
Yeah.
And Lark happens to have gotten there first. I think
it's just like, why? Please take this up with somebody else.
I think what's also really interesting in this whole thing, she's still grappling. I feel like she's still grappling with like, what is my emotional reaction here, and what is Arthur's. But they know that she has like Arthur's strength, and they've never seen someone awakened by Arthur before. But it just feels like, I don't know, they just feel real comfortable disrespecting this girl, not only knowing that she's the crown scion and whatever that means, but like knowing that old white man is awake in her. Like,
well, so I don't think that they fully all know the idea of like, I don't know if they all know that she's a medium, or the way that like Arthur's.
Well, not that she's a medium, but like that. Oh yeah, so like they don't know that how strongly she's connected to Arthur, because with other people who are awakened, they just get like their abilities. Yeah. But like they do know that like Arthur has super strength, basically. And then
but he's on the other side of the barrier.
This is the thing about white. I don't even know, because Zhao doesn't seem like a white person. This is the thing about like non-black folk or just racist folk. Like, talk shit, get hit, right? Like, it just feels like you want to be a little bit more careful speaking froggy to someone who has access to, like, super strength.
Yeah.
Especially someone who cannot control their temper in a public setting. So, like,
yeah.
Do you really think she's going to hold back on her power for you?
I think because he's a Merlin, he thinks he can take her. And
but he's
Mark is hiding the broken hand.
But it's still a
I'm not saying.
I mean, and maybe he's just not thinking deeply enough about it, and like the disrespect is just too loud.
And he's been waiting on
consequences. But it just feels like a dangerous game to play.
Yeah.
I also feel like it's the power of like not the people, but like he knows he's surrounded by other Merlins. He knows that there's a crowd. She's like,
but she just stood up and
that's what I'm saying. You would think, but he even if he gets hit and knocked out, he knows that the power is on his side more than it's on her side. Like the ramifications are going to be more for her. So it's better for him to provoke her, honestly, than it is for him to be afraid of her.
So William comes up and stops any of that from happening. He's like, how about taking an order from me? And then Max is like apologizes to him and opens the shield. And then William goes, while you are in the territory of the Southern Chapter, you will never stop someone from seeking their own refuge. Do you understand me? And then Zhao sputters, but the safety, does Paige Matthews appear to be in immediate danger to you? William presses. No, Max shakes his head. Apologies, Scion.
Annoying AF.
Just
she's the prime Scion, and here you are. Oh, well, the white man Scion who's been embedded in this whole thing the whole time tells me what to do. I'll listen to him, but not you. Not you, girl.
Just take it somewhere else. What's going on with you, bro? Like you just relax.
Go back to Avatar, okay? Go back to the Fire Nation with this bullshit.
So
we in North Carolina.
So Bree is obviously still pissed and heated. So she's like walking away. Lark is trying to talk to her, and she's like, I don't really want to talk to you right now. So William's catching up. He introduces himself to Lark. Lark's got a crush. Bree would find that cute. But right now she's mad at Lark and doesn't really trust him. So she's just like, ew, like, don't look at William that way. And so, yeah. So then, like, they're, Lark, I think Lark is like decides, or no. Then Tor comes up. I guess the funeral's over. Tor's marching up the hill to Bree, and all the other Legendborn are following. Obviously Tor is kind of like siding with the Regents, is like angry at Bree for making a scene and all that stuff. And Bree is kind of like, okay, but we all know Cell didn't do that, so like what's the issue? And she's like, well, then why did he run if he wasn't guilty?
Tor is mad at Bree for existing.
Yeah.
Tor is mad at herself.
Even before
for being
she knew
miserable.
Bree was Arthur, she was mad at Bree.
Tor is
like,
just angry.
You can't forget that the reason all this is happening is Tor's fault.
Because of her.
It's because of her.
It's your fault.
So,
but I want to say too that, like, just in my head, Tor saying, "Hey Matthews," and then marching up the hill gives, if you play Pokemon, you know this. When you play Pokemon, you have a rival, usually called Red, in the game, and it's very much giving Tor is Red from the game. Like, you're like, because they like yell at you when you first come in the game. You're like, moseying around playing, like doing Pokemon things, and then that rival yells at you, and you're like, who the F are you? And it's like the rival, like, introducing themselves to you or whatever, and they're an a-hole the whole time. And that's Tor's energy. Like, that is exactly, and it would be one thing, like in Pokemon, the rival is annoying, but you end up learning things from each other. Tor will never. Like, I wish Tor could be something like that, but no.
She just sucks. So then Greer tells Tor to back off and is like, you're causing a scene at a funeral, and then kind of glances at Bree and is like, well, another scene. But also, technically, Bree didn't cause the first scene. She caused the second one. Lots of scenes happening at this funeral. So then Tor is like, fine.
If you think about the like entrance of the Regents, like that was the first scene.
Yeah, but I feel like that was still part of the ceremony, not like a disruption to the ceremony. So then Tor looks to Sarah, who's her squire and also a girlfriend, and it's like, holds her hand out to her like, you're gonna come, and Sarah's like, nah, I'll catch up with you later. And so clearly, like, then once Tor leaves, Sarah apologizes to Bree, and Bree is kind of like, it's not your fault, but then Sarah's like, yeah, but I haven't been saying anything either. So she kind of is realizing her own both role in like kind of allowing Tor to be the way that she
and
is,
how far it's gotten.
But also it just seems like she's clearly starting to realize some things about Tor, about her role in allowing Tor to be this way, and is like trying to work through what she wants to do with those realizations. So, more on that later. So they're all kind of like talking to Bree about the situation. And again, this like goes back to our earlier conversation. Like, the Legendborn are all trying to like convince themselves that this is protocol. They're kind of like, maybe it's not that big of a deal. Maybe they'll find Cell, or like, they're just trying to like get more information, and this is just par for the course. And it doesn't necessarily seem like they completely believe that, but it's like based on what they've been taught, based on what they're like told to expect, they're trying to kind of rationalize it in their head. They've been taught to trust the order and to trust how these things work, and so they're like, there must be a reasonable explanation for it. Bree, meanwhile, is like, she's worried about Cell. She also kind of is worried about her mission to find Nick, because she's like, I never thought I was gonna have to find Nick by myself. I always thought that was gonna be with Cell. And then she has this quote where she kind of thinks to herself, is this what kings do? Make other people's lives harder with their own bad decisions. And so she's just like feeling a lot
sometimes, but often,
sometimes,
yes.
Right. I'm like, honestly,
often, yes. Often, yes.
And
have
so
you
she's
seen
also
Hamilton? No.
right. She's also thinking about, or she's like feeling really guilty, and kind of ashamed, and noticing. I think also because in their argument with Tor kind of like also threw in her face the fact that she still can't control her um abilities. So I think it's just like kind of compounded shame. And she's also kind of noticing her friends are kind of sitting around and like talking and stuff, but she's noticing that they're kind of like looking at her, and I mean, she's reading disappointment on their faces. We don't know 100% if that's like really the case, but that's what she's kind of seeing. And so then she kind of looks over at Felicity, who's standing off to the side by herself, and is clearly like having a hard time. She's grieving, right? Bree is kind of recognizes that, understands it, right? Because she has had her own kind of like, she's still dealing with her grief around her mom. So she tries to like kind of give what comfort she can to Felicity. And there's a moment where I guess Bree kind of asks Felicity, she's like, "You must be so angry." And Felicity's like, "You have no idea." And then Bree kind of thinks about how like she could say, "I do have an idea of that," but then realize like she knows that that's not really useful, because everyone's grief is different. And so the quote that like Tracy writes there is that grief is suffering tailored, which I think was like a really good, like a good way to put it. I think like in terms of writing, I appreciated that. It's like, yeah, people.
Poignant.
Yes, thank you. I'm like, that good is such a mid word. um but it's just like, people, everyone has or will experience loss, but it all depends on the relationships and the people, and there's just so many other like aspects that go into it that it can't be the same. It can be similar feelings, but it's very much like specific to the person or people. So instead she's just kind of like, I hope it lets up. And then also like Bree still they haven't touched on yet the like, I think they maybe will, it'll be kind of semi soon, but like there's also I can't remember what they call it, but obviously Felicity and Russ were like together, but they also had the like bond. So there's also like the added magical
They were
like
oath.
trauma of it as well.
The breaking of the oath between the two of them.
Yeah. I feel like there was a word for it, but I don't remember.
Isn't it oath? Like oath?
Well, there's an oath, but like when one of them dies, I feel like there was a word for it. But yeah, I think it'll come up. And if there's not a word for it, then there isn't. But like, it'll definitely come up later.
Well, it's really interesting because like with the Merlins, because we hear a lot about cells, capital O's, and also like how he's kind of controlling himself with Nick being gone, and like their proximity is very important to his oaths, but also like I think William says later on, like in serving the chapter and then acting as like Bree's kind of stand-in King's mage, it's done a lot to like help keep him under control and stuff like that. And I do wonder if like the same kind of emotional price, I guess, is maybe definitely to like a lesser extent, because there's no like, hopefully there's no demon blood, but that there is still like an emotional toll, because it it does feel like even before Bree's like awakened into Arthur, and she and how she even explains like or tries to, I guess, comfort Felicity about like anger, right? And we hear a lot about like Bree's anger being very close to the surface. And then what we just saw with not only Bree's anger, but then Arthur's anger being very close to the surface. And Bree has like mentioned like other awakened scions don't experience like being able to like talk to their what is it called? Legendborn hero, whatever. I don't know. Like the knight, they don't mention like hearing their thoughts like word for word the way that Bree does with Arthur sometimes, but they do feel a stronger emotional. Yeah.
It's more like
saying,
they may take on the personality or parts of the personality, but they don't.
Yeah, but they don't communicate with them, but they did say that they like will feel like heightened senses or emotions. I guess it's probably like senses, right? So that is obviously a magical tie to the bloodline. So is it not just the oaths, but is it also just the tie to medieval patriarchy and unfettered emotions that they're, you know what I mean?
I mean, I think it's the oaths. I don't think it's that. Because I think it's because they really don't feel like the only reason Bree has as much of Arthur in her is because she's a medium. Like they're not. I don't like the other knights are not awake in the way that Arthur is awake.
I understand that, but they did mention like feeling heightened senses and things like that, like more tied to like.
I think it's more like how they were, not necessarily like they're like it's not like they're feeling. It's not like the
It's not literal feelings. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying like if I forget whose list it is, but like if Tristan, I think no, that's Tor, whatever. But if Tristan is quicker to anger, then that scion will say like, oh, I feel like I'm more quicker to anger than is innate within me before I was awakened, is what I'm saying. And so my thought is because these are a bunch of medieval men in like Wales with just unfettered patriarchy and like the most disgusting, like they were never.
No therapy. No emotional
intelligence. Therapy, but they were also never expected to like control their emotions.
To build emotional intelligence, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm wondering how much of that like is also playing a role with all of these like awakened lines.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah, it's possible. And there's also like the guilt and stuff too. Like there was a moment in the last chapter where during the ceremony, whoever was talking, I can't remember, maybe Aldrich, and it was like talking about the squires like laying down their lives for the scions and like, you know, like there's all this extra stuff put on it too that's just like, yeah, it's just a lot of different things.
And just not normal old, like it's not a big deal, but like just PTSD.
Yeah.
They were in a battle.
Yeah.
Like, period. That is not something that you just get over.
Do we know how long it's been since the battle? It's like been a month generally.
It's been a month.
A month and a week? Like how, like, you know, like how...
I think it's been a month and a day. Because like, yesterday is when she snuck out. And then all of the Merlin showed up. So it's been like a month and a day.
Yeah. So...
and they're not able to be open about it. I think that's also really important.
Where is the Dr. Hartwood of the order?
Right.
Like, they don't have...
Because they are... All of these chapters, like this entire chapter is also just keeping a secret.
They don't have any like mental health specialists.
I hate them. No.
They absolutely should.
If you need a fighting assistance, they got that all day. But mental?
No. So then
where do they do that at?
So then so in general, like, so they start kind of like peeling off. They're saying goodbye to Bree. Greer and Pete is hecka funny to me. Like he's just like, he was like, yeah, I would have said something, I think, if you hadn't. Like, okay, all right, sir, you and your lion. But he and Greer are going off to patrol. Greer lets Bree know that if they happen to see Cell, they'll let Bree know instead of the Regents. So you kind of see that like the Legendborn themselves do have that loyalty to Bree, other than Tor, obviously, but like they all kind of subscribe to, you know, Bree's the king, so Bree's in charge. Which is nice in that sense. It just doesn't really help in a larger sense, but at least they are falling in line in that case. No pun intended. So they all dip. They're all kind of like giving her support. They're like, good luck on the right. We'll see you after. But then William stays and is like, we need to talk. And then that's how that chapter ends.
And so ensues the beginning of the chapter of William is schooled in how to play the game by Sir William the Best. So she and William are going to her room at the compound, because we must remember that they've already moved their stuff over to the compound, and Bree is the main one who's over there right now. Like, whenever as William talks, he mentions he's going back to the lodge. So homegirl is kind of like, I mentioned she needs to be concerned about how they mentioned that Dud and Nick were sequestered, because that's what they're about to do to her.
That's what I also like caught that, and I was like, if y'all can move her stuff, and like, yeah, sure, she's like crown scion, so it's probably, if we're taking whatever they say at face value, then like, yeah, okay, maybe her stuff is ready first, or her room is ready first, right?
Mm-hmm.
They don't have the manpower to move everybody. The minute that Will is like, I'm going back to the lodge, or the other people are going back to the lodge, and she's staying.
Well, I don't know if the rest of them are.
She's staying at this compound. But they told them.
The rest of them are going on patrol. So I don't know if they're like, I don't think I think Will's the only one who says he's going to the lodge specifically.
Okay.
But
they
yeah,
could
I don't know.
It is suspicious. Muy suspicioso.
I mean, and Bree is technically going back to the lodge too for the right, at least.
Yeah. So, William basically gives her the rundown, and I love him for it, but also hate it, because it's basically the rundown and how to play the white supremacy game in the way that it should appeal to the white supremacists. But we all know that there's no way to win when you're the target of white supremacy. Like, right. You can't play the game to win the way they write the game, because it's not going to benefit you ever.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yet here we are having to do the jig and know that we're never going to win. And so basically, and this is why I started my rambling there, because he basically gets her on. She needs to save her rage from the streets and instead keep it in the sheets. Like in her own bedroom, she's safe to rage all she wants.
Oh my gosh.
In her own bedroom, she can rage all she wants. But
can I bring back a classic?
Bring her black girl anger to the streets, because those people will use it against her anytime, anyway.
Can I bring back a classic real quick? You not right. You're not wrong. You're not right. But
yeah, they're definitely not wrong.
And there's other ways she could translate her anger into the streets, but we're not going to go right now. Mm-hmm. We're going to just keep her moving. And I love how adorable William is as he's trying to pull her, bring her down the ledge that she's on of exploding. He says, "You cannot explode in front of your future subjects, Bree. You've just shown an entire crowd of order members, pages, legendborn, vassals." He's naming all the different people. Vassals, lieges, merlins, seneschals, and regents that you're hot-headed, impulsive, and lack protocol and decorum. An outburst that nearly rivaled one Selwyn Kane. First of his name.
That was the part that hurt.
That's the part. That's really the part.
That was the low blow. That was the low blow. I was gonna say, when I was hearing this, because I was thinking a lot about this in terms of Arthur, right? Because she said, she's thinking I can't even tell him that outburst wasn't completely me.
Mm-hmm.
But I was also thinking about the fact that I bet you when Arthur was out here having these outbursts and yelling and whatever, no one was like, it shows that you're not in control and you're not kingly, right? It's what you're talking about with like white supremacy always being said, it like never allowing Bree to win. Is like if Nick did it, or Arthur, or Lord Regent Aldridge, whatever, it would show passion, right? That's what I was thinking. And then he goes, rival cell. And when there is a bit of an
discrimination,
a difference too, as well, because Cell is Cambion and not fully human, right? So he also has a little bit of that.
But it's also kind of like an ableist kind of discrimination, because they're like, oh, he could be a sign of him being going mad. Like it's like an
exactly. Exactly. So it's like, so it is like not a like Cell is excluded from that like men show passion and women are hysterical type of misogyny. He's excluded from that because of his Merlinness. But in the moment, I was like, how dare you? Then he goes and rival Selwyn, and I was like, ooh, oh, that hurts a little bit. That hurts a little bit.
For me, it was like Cell never can say, am I the drama? Because he knows he's the drama. Like he can't ever question if he knows he's the drama. However, if you tell me I'm the drama and a rival to Cell, I'm like, that man knows he's drama.
I didn't know. I'm not, How'd I reach that level unknowingly? Am I so like unself-aware that I hit Cell's level without realizing? Ouch. Yeah. Okay.
You might be right.
Either way, it hurts.
Right.
It hurts.
You might be a little right. So Bree is rightfully taken aback and says, "So are you here to berate me? Because like again, you invoked Cell's name level of drama, so that must mean I'm getting a talk down. Because who Cell with?" So William shakes his head and smiles. He tells her no, but he just, again, keep it in the sheets, not the streets. And he's like, but let it out here. So take it out. Say what you want to say. She's ranting. William is being so adorable because like she's letting her have her moment, but he's also like,
making tea,
like but he made us like a questioning sound. She has to look up from her rant and be like, what is he asking me about? And he's just like shaking out the tea, like tea, like he's not even saying anything. He's just like holding it out, and it's like it's adorable. And then she's like, I don't want tea. He's like, no, you can't say no to tea. Like you gotta have a tea. And he was asking her like, is this helping you? Is this ranting helping? And she's like, nah, I got more. And he's like, okay, so you need chamomile because you're not coming down the way you need to come down real quick. And that's just adorable. He's like,
we're on your rant has a time limit because you do got to get to this right. So I need you to wrap it up, B.
And he's like, I am the healer, so I'm gonna help you get there. But I need to know what to prescribe you in this moment. And I know it's tea, but which tea? That chamomile. That chamomile will do it for you. So he does that. And like as she's ranting, she's saying all the things, how what's unfair, what's upset, blah, 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 blah. And it's really cute that he's like, making it clear to her like why he's he's not only just like there for her as a friend, not just there for her as a scion looking out for another scion. He's like, I want to make sure that you go into the right with a clear head, and that's happening soon. So the better I can help you get there, the better we can be prepared for what's next. And then what's next is he's like, I need you to like consider like, yes, you're absolutely right to be mad, but we need to consider what all is happening with the way the Regents have rolled out their answer of like Cell being the culprit. Like what also is actually at play. And Bree's like, well, they can't control Camelon or stop it without us or without me. And William agrees with her, but he says they can control the war's narrative. And he mentions that they have had whispers about approaching Camelon for months. And though the order may appear as one hierarchy, is made up of two factions that the Regents must walk a fine line between, and that Bree will as well. So he has names the two, one of which are the traditionalists. They are those who gain from being part of the Legend-born bloodlines and their pledges. So all the people who submit their children to being part of the scion, to squires, pages, all of that, people who just believe in the power from the source of Arthur in the Round Table. And then there's the modernist, who are not plugging their people into that system necessarily, but they have come in usually like during a time of peace, when Camelot, it's been 300 years since Camelot, so they really don't see Camelot as an impending threat. They're not looking for it. And so because of that, they look at their membership in the order as an expansion of power, being able to be pulled into a system that's going to allow them to build power, to utilize power that's already been built. And they won't have to be tied to tradition in order to rise in rank, either within the order, which to the most part doesn't seem like they care about rising in rank in the order, but actually rising in rank in the real world outside of the order.
So, and I think one of the things, and like, I know, I don't think that William is expecting this of Bree, but I do think it's very, like, it's a part of what we were talking about with how, like, William and a lot of the members of the order are born and raised within this, especially, like, when we get to the level of, like, scions and their pages, for the most part. How they're, like, so steeped in this that, like, even as this outburst is happening at a funeral in which William is on stage, like, being looked at by all of these people in front of, like, the 3 regents who he's probably never seen in one spot before, maybe has never even really met them. I'm assuming he has because he's a scion, but you know what I mean? Like, he's able to, like, take all of this in and still be thinking about the narrative and what all this means, and like hear Aldrich say what Aldrich said and think politically about it in a way that would never cross Bree's mind, because she's just not, she's been introduced to the Legendborn, one, in a time of, like, war, but 2, from the perspective of, like, mostly the traditionalists and the perspective of the people who are being awakened and things. So they're not, in all of her interactions and, like, experiences with the Legendborn, which it's been, again, this entire story from the start of Legendborn to where we are right now, it's been like 3 months, if we're lucky. And a month of that was, like, post someone dying and then being told to sit and wait, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, like, she doesn't have the luxury or the wherewithal or the background knowledge to hear the subtext. Like, William's able to, like, not just hear what Aldrich is saying, but he's able to hear the subtext, know that there's a reason why there is subtext, and then try to parse out, like, what the end goal is in a way that, like, Bree would never be able to do, just because she does not have that level of experience with this group. And not that William would expect this of her, but he's trying to bring her along, right? But other people are expecting her
to just know,
no matter how insane that is and how, like, illogical it is. They're expecting her to have picked up on all of the subtext and to know that this is not, like, he's not just saying this because it's the truth, or he's not, but, like, yes, this is a farce. Yes, this is a performance, and you should know that because you're king. Like, bitch, I just got here. It's infuriating.
Yeah. It's like, that's the thing I think that we've talked about generally in fandom spaces, about how, like, when fandom spaces have been built up and there's a level of culture that they've cultivated over time, and they just, like, assume new people will pop in and just get the culture that they've created without actually giving, like, any heads up or understanding, or, like, reaching out to kind of acclimate people when they're fresh in. And so it's interesting, right, that, like, we're talking about this, like, white supremacist group, but this is something that happens, like, even when people have good intentions, it pops up because you don't check yourself and how you actually are welcoming. You're welcoming you to each other, but how welcoming are you to outsiders? And for them, this is purposeful for Bree. They don't want her to feel welcomed. They don't care that Arthur is within her. They don't want her to pull this stuff together.
And then they're also then allow themselves to denigrate her for not feeling that.
Yeah, they'll use it as another point against her.
It's another mark against her. Hate it.
We hate it here. So about the Regent narrative, there's the jig behind the narrative is that they know the modernists and likely some traditionalists too will balk if they know that the current Comlon was orchestrated by one of their own high-ranking legacy, which is Jud Davis. If they tell the truth, this will put the Regents in a place where they may no longer have control because people are going to try to seize control from them. Because again, like we were talking about earlier, the actual accountability is on the adults. It's not on the 17-year-olds. And they're doing their best to maintain power. So what do? Pin it on the 17-year-old, well, 19-year-old self. The Regents also depend on the modernist support, like to, like it's kind of like if you think about universities, how they depend on their alumni to have prestige, right? Like they're like, like we have these illustrious members of our like alumni. They are, even if they don't support them financially, they can point out those alumni as people that this is what our school produces. And so we need to be able to show that like we have a proven record of getting people in power positions, but they also need their support in return to make sure that the thing keeps going and will keep spinning. And they also need the traditionalist loyalty to keep feeding their children through the system of sacrifice. And to believe into the power of the hierarchy that they represent. So they have to grease both the sides of the wheel. They can't lean one side or another. And like they said, it's a very, like William said, it's a very like thin line to play. And Bree thinks that owning her powers, sadly, this is how it is so messed up because we know where it's going to happen. Sadly, and I think this is something that is like a part and parcel of so many people of color, is whenever you're part of this system that is rigged against you, you kind of hold on to integrity. Like, at least I do it the way that they say it needs to be done. They said that I have to show academic or athletic performance, high achieving performance in order to get what I want. I'm playing that game. They said I have to keep on my P's and Q's and not get crazy in public spaces. I'm doing that. But what does that come? When do you make your stand when following those guidelines actually harms you? When do you actually stand up?
And it's the whole like, working within the system to change the thing. Like,
and like that doesn't
what happens
pay
when
off.
the system
like,
is like
working within the system.
No. Like, how about no? I'm not gonna.
Actually,
we never go for you in the first place. We were
like, we're not worried about you. But I do appreciate that this book kind of like, I would say this book almost immediately dissuades Bree of that notion. It's immediately like, nope. Yeah. You have to do this a different way.
You thought.
Doesn't matter.
It's not. This isn't actually going to work the way that you thought it was going to work. I like it. I say I like it. I actually hate it. It pisses me off. Like, in terms of how it goes down, but in terms of messaging, yeah,
it's a good theme. It's a good a lesson to learn from this kind of subject. So Bree, because she's stuck on her integrity thoughts, she thinks that owning her powers will allow her to break through the Regent subterfuge, because once she's able to take the right, she is going to be able to unite the table and be able to run everything on her own. And that's, again, like knowing what I know, but also just like in seeing how she's not been attuned to what's actually happening. It's like, what power can you actually expect? Because they're not.
But even William thinks, you know what I mean? Like, they all think that, like, Bree's the king. So once she does the official thing, we're good. And it's like,
Sadly,
these kids, man.
Sadly mistaken. Yeah. So
they don't realize they're up against B613. Like, they really don't.
They really don't.
They don't realize.
But it's also, yeah, it's like it's what you're saying, Porshèa, about like holding on to like playing the game as written. Do you know what it is? It's when you go to someone's house and you're playing Uno, and then 90% of the way through the game you realize that they're playing house rules and you're playing like your house rules, and your house rules are not the same. And all of a sudden someone is like, oh no, now you need to pick 16 because it was 4 pick 4s in a row or whatever. And you're like, nah, bitch, that's not how that. And then you realize that house rules, right? The problem is every single person has a different understanding of the house rules. And there's no stopping the like, and I'm kind of interested in this because we don't know. Like, I think it's pretty obvious because he is like Lord Regent and like the ruler of the whole thing, that the way that this plays out, Aldridge is fine with, right? Because like he could very easily, I'm assuming, be like, no, we're doing it this way or whatever. We don't know even the hierarchy or the influence of all three regents, if they're on the same page, but we do know that like as an entity that this is what's going on. But it doesn't matter, like, to Bree, if there is even like one regent who's sort of maybe a little bit sympathetic to her, because they're not going to go against
the system,
which
gives
right
them power.
And so
the system gives the regents power.
Exactly. And in the same way in which, like, yeah, more than likely, and we'll see, like, Will go against the system for Bree, but then he realizes that his power that he thought he had
is limited.
It is a drop in the bucket to the system's power.
Yeah. I mean, Bree is Arthur, and she can be put down this way. So it's, and even, yes, William's been brought up in the system, but it's like she has more power than you, firepower.
Yeah,
and she can't do anything.
There's nothing you can do about it. It's just, yeah, it's so.
And I keep mentioning Arthur, but like she also has root work, so she's like doubly down powerful and like still can't do anything. So William brings up the disconcerting fact that they still don't know if there are actual other Gorishals, like mimic demons in their midst or not, and that the investigation into Sel's actions takes away from like them like worrying too much about Bree. So he is like, I'm sure Sel is even more, happy to know that like, even if they're putting the heat on him, that means they're not putting the heat on you again. So they think. So I think it's just really funny how Lark, who's brand new to the situation, but William even more so, who's been there since like almost day one, to see how Bree and Sel are to each other, immediately knows how that one, that Bree is concerned about Sel, and two, how to help her not have so much anxiety around the concern she has about Sel, in order to get her head straight about how to proceed in order to like keep things moving the way that it needs to move. So I think. But I just think it's really nice and cute that he knows how to quell her concerns over Sel, the most dramatic person ever. And then the other thing that happens is like he's kind of like talking Bree through like, let's think about what you need to do to carry out this game. She's like, chestnut checkers. He can see her like, yeah, now drink your tea. And as she's drinking her tea, she's having a moment to cool down, like from all the like adrenaline and everything. And she starts to feel humiliated a little bit, because she thinks about how anyone who saw her shout at the Regents could think anything about her. Some of them won't even care to hear about how Arthur and how she has uncontrollable bleed-throughs if she were able to even share that information, because she probably confirmed the worst assumptions of any of the racists that were already in the crowd, like Teresa, because they already treat her like she's unkept and out of place, and she doesn't really and shouldn't really care about them. And she doesn't, but she wants to keep herself from being pigeonholed while she's trying to carry out the job and role of being the sign of Arthur, and she doesn't need that heat on her, and she's kind of made it bad for herself. And it's like, again, I'm talking about like the white supremacist system and all of that, but that's another component of it, is like, how do you appear? Because they will use how you appear to like denigrate like what you actually do. And that's like tone policing, that's your literal appearance. They will use anything around you, and then we'll say it's about professionalism. It's not about me being racist. It's just about what's professional, like, what's the right thing to do here. And that fake like gentility, fake like what do the British call it, like
propriety,
but like there's another word that I'm thinking about where they're like civilized, like, yeah.
Comportment.
Yeah.
This is how you comport yourself in a civilized society. And like they are the ones that determined what civilized means.
While they have riots during soccer games and all of
but
that.
Also like take it back, like pulling out people's teeth and wearing them in their own mouths as dentures,
stealing people's stuff
hair
from their countries and saying that the country is uncultured, but then you are cultured because you have their stuff.
You have their stuff in your museums, like dying from diseases because y'all don't bathe, but then being upset because people smell offensively
clean.
Just to bring it back.
So aggressively funny. Like soap. They smell aggressively
like soap. So, meanwhile, Arthur was in Bree's head talking about, I could feel the blood smeared on my tunic and leathers.
And still ain't showered.
Ain't bathed. Ain't said, how about we gather for this funeral after we have washed ourselves?
We should go a little quicker.
Move on.
Yes. But Bree is talking, when she's talking to William, they're able to joke a little bit about it, like the direness of like the Merlins and their mesmers, and make a joke about it, but it's also like not really a joke. They're just trying to like have a moment of like, at least it's not the pinnacle worst right now, basically. And then he also, like, when he has that moment of like I love William. He's basically like, he's sandwiching Bree. He's like, let's talk about a deep thing, give a little moment of levity, back to another deep thing that we definitely need to talk about right now, which is the fact that she broke Lark's hand. And he was like, I saw it happen, and while you didn't do it on purpose, you also didn't try not to do it, which is equally dangerous or whatever. And it's so whenever we had that flashback of Arthur on the field, you could see that he felt the guilt of like, he was the king, he was the one who was in the lead, and he feels like not only the loss, like the grief of the loss of the people, but the grief of it was on his command. Like, he feels a level of responsibility for the people on the field. However, when it came to him breaking Lark's hand, like using his extra scent, like he was down for that. Like, he didn't, there was no like care. Pushback on rejection of using his power for that. So honestly, it's Bree feeling more responsible for how Arthur is showing up in her body than Arthur feels about doing anything with her body, which is the true crime of it all. Like, yes, Bree is kind of is responsible for just like proceeding because she has like a level of dislike towards Lark, and not really caring too much in the moment about breaking his hand, but how much of that was influenced by Arthur and how he feels like, I don't know, I don't care, I'm the king, about doing crap like
that. Also, for someone who she like, excuse me, 2 seconds ago was like, he knew what was happening, fuck Lark, like, she doesn't actually Arthur should have more feeling for Lark because Lark is a Merlin. Lark is pledged to the Legendborn. Like, Arthur is more tied to this society and order than Bree ever will be. And yet Bree feels more just because of humanity. Sorry, and being a decent person, she feels more guilt and responsibility.
When you are, I'm gonna say it. When you're a Black woman, you tend to be probably the most empathetic person in a room because you have had to go through enough crap that you can actually empathize when people are going through crap because you've gone through if you're not similar crap, an equal amount of crap as the person who's going through something in the room. So of course she feels more for humanity because she's reckoned with her humanity on a regular basis and like that need of it. Arthur, he was the king, like you were saying, during a misogynist period. What did he ever have to reckon with his own humanity besides his mortality when he finally died? And even then, it was prolonged by this magical other white man. So that's a whole other tangent of thought there, right? But then, so Bree's talk with William finally ends. You know, it ends on a nice note. You know, he's going to give an extra big hug to Alice. But I just wanted to note how once he's gone, it's not just the relief of like the conversation being over, but also just like Bree's talking about like all the socializing she had to do that day. And I'm like, if that's not introversion, that as soon as you're like released from social duties, you're like, thank effing goodness, because I can't.
She's like, I need a break.
And she still has to go back outside to do this right. Like, I can't. Like, I'm tired. Can we do this another day, please? I'm tired. I'm exhausted.
I did too much peopling, and especially when most of the people were racist
My
and
social
terrible.
battery is on negative. It's on negative 5.
Like...
I seriously would reconsider. I can't. So William is not the only person we get this chapter who has his, has Bree's back. We also get a text exchange between her and Alice, where she's just writing down her day and Alice is giving her some backup and also some there's a couple of things that I learned from the archives, and Bree's like, I don't know if I want to know the information, and she's like, isn't it great? It's fine, we're good. And I just think that it's really sweet that this is one chapter where people are looking out for Bree, and it's two of the people she's shown to be closest to from the first book that aren't Nick or Cell, and I'm like, is this the best it's gonna get in this act? Is this the best of times for Bree?
If you look at the table of contents, we don't have much longer in this act, so yeah.
Yeah, it's all downhill from here.
Let's take a moment of silence for Bree.
Cherish the
day. So as Bree is preparing herself to go to this rite, she puts on she figures out her outfit because that's part of the reasoning that she had her text exchange with Alice. Like, what do I even wear? And Alice is like, girl, you are king. You can do whatever you want to do. And she decides she's gonna do a kind of equestrian core kind of look, because she's riding leggings or whatever, and riding boots. And then she wears a loose Beltic tunic with a hooded cape. So she has again, it's giving a little bit of equestrian core, a little bit of a sprinkle of Arthur period, but not really. And she puts on her mother's charm bracelet, which initially was part of carrying her mother's memory, literally. And then Nick's Pendragon coin necklace. So she's she just had an exchange with people who support her, her biggest supporters, which are William and Alice. She has her mother's charm bracelet. She has on Nick's pendant. And it's so sweet. But also the only person she's really missing is her father. Representation of her father. And Cell. But what could you possibly have of Cell's besides his drama? It's just
they have the temper.
She has brought his temper with her.
And so as the chapter closes out, she's kind of putting everything into perspective, the way that William has kind of shaped her thought to be. And like a good monarch to be, Bree longs to protect, So, because that's where she is. She's like, I want to protect everyone around me. I want Cell to be okay. I want the root workers to be okay. I want my mom and Alice, and I want all the Legendborn to be okay. I want the Regents to back off. She's just looking for being able to use her power to protect people. And she knows as a monarch, she should be able to have that possibility. But as we will see,
it's very sad. Like, it's just, she's like, it's fine, I just want, and I don't even think, like, even if the order wasn't how they were, like, I still don't think that the things that she wants, she could probably get. Like, even if things went how she expects, like, there's still a lot of hoops she would have to jump through. There's still, like, all types of stuff she would have to deal with. But what she does end up having to deal with is worse than even that. So
even if she only had to deal with the racism of, like, the Order of the Rose and, like, the general racism throughout the order,
or even just the like protocol and all that stuff of the order
tied into the racism. So, like, so she, like, even if that was all she had to worry about, it would still not go well because they're gonna throw things in her path to keep her from being able to be effective.
Boo.
It's a setup. Ugh. Boo indeed.
Like Kashana said, William said, "You in danger, girl." And I feel like that's just like, there's been warnings. Last episode, the person in danger who's getting warned was Cell. This chapter, it's Bree, but none of them understand how deeply Bree's in danger.
They're in danger.
Yeah.
And they don't, and none of them also, like, everyone's worried about someone else and not worried enough about themselves, or, like, not that they're, like,
not in a selfish, like, narcissistic, you should care about yourself.
Yeah, but just, like, thinking, I mean, Bree and especially is, like, just so focused on Nick, so focused on Cell, and still not thinking about the fact that, like, beyond the racism, which is crazy to say,
right?
She's like, yeah, I am ripe. I'm open for racism and micro and macro aggressions,
because that's how she's been taught. Her
she's ready for
has
that.
Been able to put her in, like, prepare her for recognizing and moving around racism. They've not been able to prepare her for what the order is about to bring to her table.
Yeah,
not at all. William is not worried about. I mean, he's worried about Bree and he's worried about Camlin and, like, worried about them coming up against demons, but he's not worried about them going up against the Regents. He's like, the danger is coming from inside the house. The call is coming from inside the house. I feel like Cell is actually eyes wide open. But
I think yes and no. I think he is, from the sense of, like, because he's a Merlin and he knows how Merlins are treated within the order, but he also thinks that most of that is justified. But I don't think that he.
I think Cell gets that, like, the Regents, because he knows how he can be treated by the Regents, that he knows a bit more about how much power they are willing to wield. But I don't think that he wield. I don't know if he thinks that, like, Bree is going to be the actual target of them in that way until it's too late.
Yeah. All right. So MVP.
I gave it to William and to Dr. Kashana for showing up here on her birthday to let us know that everybody in danger. So, both of them. Happy birthday, Doc.
Happy birthday.
Yay, happy birthday. I did William. Really, like, you need friends to tell you when you maybe didn't do something the way you probably should have, or, like, you need people who are gonna hold you accountable. And again, it's not that, like, any of this matters when going up against the Regents specifically, but, like, it does matter in general. And I think that it is something that Bree has to just be more strategic, and she has to, like, know when and where she can express some of her emotions, and like it sucks. It's not that like it's not that she should have to do that, but it is the reality. And I think that like again, it's like she understands what she's up against to an extent, even though really she has no idea. But like there's still just like I think that she still hasn't fully, and it's been the thing from the beginning of the book, like still hasn't fully internalized the fact that she is the king. You know what I mean? And like just the way that she's been moving this whole time, from the sneaking out to, you know, like all of that has to do with her still thinking more like she's just herself, and not so much like there aren't these other things that are affected by her choices.
And that the order exists separate and apart from her, when now she has literally been thrust into the heart of the whole thing. Mm-hmm. Like in the first book, when she's trying to figure out the mystery of her mother and all of this stuff, like the order is playing a role in her life that she's trying to understand, and she hasn't flipped the switch. Now she is playing a role in the order's life and the order's day to day. I also want to shout out Will for the fact that like he does, like you said, like tell her about herself, but in a way that is also like and like helps her to move forward, right? Because he leaves her like, you still got this, right? Like there's still chances. Like that wasn't the best first impression, but it's not over yet. So yeah, she doesn't leave. She is chastised, but she's not chastised and feeling like there's no hope, and she might as well just like burn it all to the ground. She's like, okay, now I need to like continue to remember to move forward in a kingly manner. Yeah.
And also for putting Zhao in his place, because bro, get a grip.
Somebody needs to get put in their place. It is Zhao. Also, I MVP'd William. I think this is an ongoing observation, but like he really is like, he does not have to be this person. He could quite simply be like, you know, homegirl needs to figure this out. I ain't got time for that. I got healing to do. I got stuff, like I don't got to worry about all this. But he's going out of his way, like all the privilege that he has from being part of the system, growing up within it, understanding it, and taking like ownership over like, I want us to succeed under Bree. I want to see Bree personally succeed. I appreciate that about him. And I think about like whenever you mentioned the quote about grief tailored, I think about how William has tailored and customized how he approaches everyone, but specifically Bree. We see it the most with her, and how he's able to customize how he approaches healing Bree, whether that's mentally or physically. He's very thoughtful in that way, considerate, and that's more than just attesting to his ability as like in a medical department, but also as like someone who takes leadership seriously and takes friendship seriously.
And then Kishana she was kind of, I guess, torn between Will and Bree.
Why not both?
Yeah, so I put both. I put both.
Porque no los dos.
Benched.
Did we all agree that it's the Regents?
Yeah, I kind of wanted to like make it Aldrich specifically, but then I'm like, they're all in it together, so it's really all of them. It's all of yeah. I was like, I wanted to be more specific, but
I do feel like Aldrich is like at the head of the snake. So if we had to give it to one person, but then I also had to like include Tor, because I do feel like
she's more bought into the system than she is into the like actual fight.
Yeah, but I also think too that there is a level of I know that they're like, there's that point where Bree's like, she's loving being up there and being the like head person in charge, or being like the current head of the person, or head of the chapter. But in like wanting to be the leader, and I feel like that is her biggest thing. It's like she wants to be in charge. I feel like she'd give Nick also a level of attitude, because she just thinks that she is the person, like, if she had her way, she would have been the scion of Arthur instead of Tristan or whatever.
She's Cersei Lannister. She thinks she's doing it for feminism. She's like, I show you the girl can do this too. And it's like, girl.
Okay. Yeah, but you're doing it wrong. No. But yeah, it's like, but even if you want to be the leader, you're the stated leader or whatever, your actions are harming not just Bree. You're not just like making it awkward for Bree, you're making it awkward for the entire chapter at this point. Like,
and she,
sorry,
she felt,
when Bree was a page or whatever, sure, I mean, you suck, but like, sure, that level of behavior was one thing. But as soon as homegirl pulled that sword, shut your fucking mouth.
I meant to mention this in the moment, but I don't know, we must have moved on. When she got checked by Greer, which was hilarious, that like like she was like, oh, she had to be put in her place by Greer, and she took it. She's like, you know what, like, okay, yeah, I am. And the fact of the matter is, before Greer checked her, when she saw Bree put him up, like have her hand in the fist that Arthur fist, she backed up a little bit, because she was like, ooh. While nobody else recognizes that Bree can F stuff up right now as Arthur, Tora's not willing to get her face checked by Arthur's power. She's not, she, like, back in the day, prior to Bree pulling the sword, all day, yeah, go on and hit me, little girl. I got my scion power. You're not gonna do nothing to me.
She saw Bree get that hell bear.
She was like, nah. She had a flashback. She was like, nah, I ain't ready for that.
Never mind.
Not today. I also benched Arthur. Like, yes, I benched the Regents for all the reasons. But I also benched Arthur because, like, Bayana has told us, and we're gonna see, Arthur's been holding back this whole time. And the primary reason I'm pinching him in this chapter, like this episode in particular, is because he's been holding back this whole time. But how convenient for you to throw her into your grief while she's using her grief to put her into your grief, and then being ready to break someone's hand, not have any qualms about it. Like, how convenient, Arthur. Like, anytime she actually needs you, trying to call on you, not there. When you're ready to put her through her paces because you feel away, you're right there. I can't deal with it. So F you, Arthur, forever for that.
He's just like a white man.
Just like one. The white man prime, because you're King Arthur. Like, F
white
you.
Man prime. And then Kishana also benched the Regents. And on that note, thank you for listening. Join us next week when we shout about chapters 10 through 12.
It's just gonna get worse and worse.
Yeah.
Wizard Team is a part of the Black Nerds Create Collective. If you want to keep up with our content, you can check out our website at blacknerdscreate.com. Follow us on Instagram and Tumblr at Wizard Team Pod and at Black Nerds Create.
Bye, y'all.
See you next time, y'all.